Well, hey guys, and welcome to another vlog. And this is another one of my movie vlogs where I like to just talk about a movie that I've seen recently. And this time around, I watched The Fault in Our Stars, which I don't know, for no particular reason or other. I feel like that's kind of an interesting choice for me, being an almost 40-year-old guy. Watching a movie that, for all intents and purposes, seemed to present itself as sort of like a chick flick. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with chick flicks or that I don't watch some chick flicks. I may have even talked about this in the past, but for some reason I still seem to be guilty of classifying them in that way and maybe kind of looking down my nose at them from time to time when I see a movie that's clearly meant to be emotional and dramatic, as opposed to, explosions and sci-fi and all that stuff. But anyway, I should talk a little bit about what I know about its source material and why I wanted to watch it, and then of course my thoughts on it and all that. I find this to be a somewhat interesting movie. Like, when it came along, I really knew nothing about it, but I did see in the advertisements where it said it was based on a book that was written by a guy, and I was like, oh, okay. Any more now these days, if something says it's based on a book, the first thing I think of is the phenomena that's really popular right now in Hollywood, which is to take a popular book, especially something that that hits well within the tweens and teens age demographics, and I'm thinking, anything from Harry Potter to Twilight to Hunger Games and Divergent and yada yada yada, and now here's this movie, and it was based on a book too. Only it wasn't really meant, in my opinion, it wasn't really meant to be some sort of a trilogy or some sort of a big epic long storyline movie. It was just meant to be a single movie, and to get out of it what you get out of it. But it was written by, or I would find out later, it was written by a gentleman named John Green, who, I think that's his name. I should probably look that up while I'm saying this, because I really hate to say something and it not be right. John Green was the author. Now, I didn't have any idea who John Green was, but somewhere along the way I learned that he was a YouTube vlogger. Surely he does much better vlogs than anything that I put out, but I digress. He and his brother had a channel called the Vlog Brothers, and so I was like, oh, that's cool. For me in my life, the last couple of years have been pretty much ruled by YouTube. So just the idea that somebody who did YouTube vlogs wrote a book and now it was becoming a movie was very, I don't know, it was like exciting and interesting to me. So I kind of kept my eye on it. I kind of watched it from afar when it went to the theaters and stuff. And I mean, it's got Shailene Woodley, who I personally think is, she's a beautiful young actress. And while I haven't, honestly, this is the first movie I've seen with her in it, yet I still kind of have a pretty high opinion of her. So I don't know, maybe that's weird, but it makes me want to watch more of her stuff. And it makes me wonder if maybe she couldn't possibly be the next big, breakout star in the vein of, a Jennifer Lawrence, who, is relatively young herself. And I've seen quite a few movies that she's in, and I've enjoyed those. But anyway, there was an attraction in that route, and then I wanted to see how she was going to portray this girl in this story who has cancer, and how it was going to equate into this love story, because, like it or not, most love stories nowadays in the movies are about, perfectly healthy / physically abled couples And you don't see a lot of stories from the perspective of people who are living with difficult things in their lives, like cancer, and the looming prognosis that someday they're probably going to die. I apologize. I'm somewhat fascinated with wiping stuff off of my monitor now that I've got a nice bright screen on there to look and see the things on the screen. But anyway, I was curious as to just how it was going to play out, how they were going to take on such an unconventional story. But in the end, I still figured it was going to be, chick flick, cute, but probably emotional, dealing with death and all that. I figured it was probably just going to be pretty run-of-the-mill. But I was really surprised that it wasn't. When the movie finally came out at Walmart, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, man, I kind of want to see it. I don't think I want to buy it, but I'd like to at least check it out. So I had some credits on Vudu and I rented that and a couple of other movies. I'll have a good 4 or 5 of these vlogs about movies that I've just rented on Vudu alone, let alone my backlog of movies. But I thought this is worth a rental off Vudu, so that's what I did. And I rented it on the 16th of last month, and I was only 3 days short of needing to get it watched or it was going to be gone. So I finally made myself tonight sit down. After the last handful of nights, I had planned on watching it, and other things would happen. I'd fall asleep, the usual thing for me. I finally sat down and watched it tonight, and I was really impressed. It's like a 2-hour-long movie. It has some weird pacing to it. Not to try to really give away too many spoilers, but a pretty big focal point of the movie involves this book written in the movie, and I'm assuming in the book itself. This book was written by an author that she really, really enjoys. It's her favorite book. It's so very meaningful to her. And this guy that she meets at a support group meeting, and they fall in love, and it's the love story in the movie. He arranges it so that she can go overseas to visit this guy to try to ask him questions about what happens at the end of the book. It's meaningful and important to her to know before she's gone what happens to these characters. And so they go to visit this guy who was played by Willem Dafoe. I just had absolutely no idea that he was in the movie. That was graceful. Leave it to me to try to breathe my water while I'm recording something. Anyway, I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. In the movie, she's sick, but she's better. And she meets this guy who's overcome cancer, even though he had to lose his leg. And he agrees to read this book that she loves so much if she reads some book based on a video game that he loves. And he ends up liking the book too, but he wants to know what happens after the story ends as much as she does. So he writes to this author who's American but who's moved to Amsterdam and who's kind of reclusive or whatever, and you find out later that he's not all that he's cracked up to be. But long story short, he arranges to use his Make-A-Wish, which he never used before when it looked like his situation was dire, so they can go overseas and meet this author. And I've probably already spilled too much of the storyline as it is, but where I thought the pacing was weird was within the first half an hour, it's already set up that they're going to go to Amsterdam. But then, of course, she gets sick. And the doctors tell her that she's just too sick to be flying overseas, to be in an airplane with her oxygen issues and whatnot. This trip has got to be off the board. So then she's crushed and she can't go, and she's even avoiding talking to Augustus, who's the gentleman that she's interested in the movie. And then all of a sudden, she gets word from her mom that they're going to be able to go. This seems to happen like over the course of about 10 minutes. He thinks you should come and visit him. Should we go? Hey, I never used my wish for the Make-A-Wish Foundation with my cancer. I've decided to use my wish to go overseas, and you can come with me. Oh, but then you got sick, and the doctors say you can't go. Well, now your mom says that you can go, and then they go, and it's like, okay, to me it felt like a bit of a stumble. Maybe in the book it's explained a little better. Maybe it's handled a little better in the book. Maybe it's just a movie thing. Who knows? But it's a minor thing, but I realize now, afterwards, that trip was very, very important for the character's development, for the story's development. And once again, I'm putting up the disclaimer here. I ain't smart enough to really explain exactly how I feel, how I process the movie. Professional reviewers and whatnot and vloggers could probably say it so much better than me, but I loved the movie a whole lot. I loved the characters. I cared about the characters. I teared up so many times in this movie, and it's depressing. It's not the happiest of endings. You got to gear up for it. If you don't see that there's going to be bad things happening as you're watching the movie, then you're probably living under a rock. But I like the fact that it both, as I put on Facebook, it was both depressing. It would be depressing at one moment, and then it would lift you up the next, and that's a great roller coaster of emotions from a movie, in my opinion. That's really I really liked that. It made me feel. I love things that make me feel these days, because sometimes I wonder if I still have a heart inside, and not just like I'm cold to the world. It's numbing sometimes to live in this world, and in my life in particular, for me, it can be challenging, and I'm glad when things come along like this and make me feel something. I think that's important. It's more important, I think, to feel things emotional in happiness and sadness and in grief and in longing and in love, way more than anger and bitterness and even depression. So anyway, that's what I took out of it. But the best thing, as I always say, is to watch it and judge it for yourself. So I would give it a recommendation for sure to people to watch. I think anybody should at least watch it, realize that it's not just some cheesy love story. It's a lot deeper than that. So anyway, that's all I got. That's all I wanted to say about it. But like I said, I have some more movies to watch in the near future, and some more of these vlogs to do, talking about my thoughts. So hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.